Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. We were doing it earlier this week. Probably going to do multiple because it is wild times in the world of college football with Oklahoma getting their bowl game. We're going to discuss that with the snubbing of the New Year's Six Bowl. We're going to talk about Florida State. We're going to talk about the transfer portal opening up today as we record at 9:45 p.m. on December 4th. We're going to talk about OU's targets. We're going to talk about who the staff's out seeing. We're going to talk, and we're probably not going to dive a whole lot into a lot of some of that stuff because that's on OU Insider, and we've got so much of that information for our members. But regardless, we're going to dive into a lot of information on this podcast with myself, Parker Thunes over there with us. And as always, you know what? Let's start it out with Parker, how you doing?
I mean, I'm tired, Brandon.
Me too. I'm drained.
I'm sure you are as well. I mean, that's really the only way to be feeling on night number 1 of portal season if you're in our line of work. So, I've had better days. I've had far worse days. But the good news is, especially if you're a VIP over at ouinsider.com, the content is flowing and it will continue to flow.
I can literally say I don't know that I've posted as many notes as I have in a single day as I have today. And I think the record's like 6 or 7 notes in a day. I've totally crushed that. And it's been wild because like the notes that are being thrown up on our site, man, are just in-depth notes you won't find anywhere else. And if you find them somewhere else, they're usually lagging behind us, I'm sure. So, I mean, we're not patting our own backs. I just want people to understand that we're not like doing the Jim Traber ultimate,
No, we're just telling you, listen, you want the information?
It's just been insane.
We got the information. That's what it boils down to.
We're literally podcasting because I had to make a few phone calls and was on the phone before all of this took place. So, and then Parker was sitting there just patiently waiting as I typed the notes up after I got off the phone. So it took a bit, but I mean, we're rocking now. We're rocking now. Yeah. I guess we got to start with the bowl, right? Like, yeah, today's the transfer portal stuff. We're going to talk about the majority of the podcast, but let's talk about OU, Arizona. It is the Jackson effing Arnold era starting on December 29th. I'm not even going to be there. Like, OU fans, here, let me put it to y'all in perspective. What happened on Sunday? I'm going skiing with my family or taking my family up for Christmas to Crested Butte. We always go up there with my in-laws. And I decided, you know what? 3 guys can go down there and cover this event. It's going to be OU Arizona. We've done the Alamo Bowl before. Yes,
it's the Alamo Bowl.
It's the Alamo Bowl, blah, blah, blah. And then, excuse me, shit went down today. And that thing ramped up real quick, Parker. Like, the interest from OU fans is like, okay, where can I buy my tickets? Because it is Jackson Arnold season for the next 2 or 3 years now. And that's what they've been waiting for.
Yeah.
That's what they've been waiting for.
You needed something to get you excited about this game because at face value, I mean, second Alamo Bowl in 3 years, a matchup with Arizona, which was a distant third. Well, I guess not a terribly distant third, but still Oregon and Washington were very clearly the 2 top teams in the Pac-12. Arizona was several steps behind those 2 programs. And so, especially when you consider the possibility of opt-outs for both of these teams, a bowl game that doesn't really mean anything in the long run, this wasn't a matchup that held a ton of intrigue until this morning when Dillon Gabriel hit the transfer portal, which obviously, Brandon, you were right. I thought he was going to go pro.
And I said West Coast. I've been saying it for a while. I've been hearing West Coast, man.
I think
For
Oregon would be
so
great
long.
for him, but regardless, Dylan Gabriel in the transfer portal as of this morning, and it is the Jackson Arnold show. So, if nothing else, can show up to the Alamo Dome and witness Jackson Arnold's first collegiate start. You can say you were there.
So I talked to some people close to Arnold today, and let me tell you something. If you ever want to know why Jackson is so even killed all the time, like he plays with some edge, right? Like he'll get up in your face and say some things when it gets a little edgy on the field. But sorry, I got to silence my phone here. He comes from really good stock as far as staying emotionally level-headed all the time. So I'll just say I reached out to his father. I was like, look, how excited are you guys? And Todd's exact response was, we're really proud of Jackson. We're excited. Really, you've met Todd before, and you've met his mom. Like they are just so even keel all the time. And so and I turned to my wife and I said, that is exactly Jackson. Like Jackson doesn't get overly excited, doesn't get overly down about anything. He just kind of stays the course. And that's probably why he is who he is and why he is where he's at in life. But at this point, you would figure there would be a little bit more excitement to the whole ordeal. And they're like, you know what? He'll be ready. We're really excited about what's about to take place moving forward, all that. And I don't know. Like, if you're an OU fan and he comes from stock like that, and you've seen him play, and we've seen him play 1,000 times, no matter the situation, he doesn't let it get to him. And this is going to be a big situation for Jackson. Like, it's a big moment in his life, in his career, moving forward. It's a big moment for Sooner Nation for at least a foreseeable future. Going into the SEC, everybody gets to see what Oklahoma is going to be like with Jackson Arnold at the helm going to the SEC in the Alamo Bowl. And don't tell me ESPN's not going to hype that crap up like crazy over the next month or the next few weeks at least. And so I expect him to go out there and shine, and I expect him, Parker, to just stay that even course that he always is and not really let a lot get to him. And for a freshman, it's going to impress a lot of people. It's going to impress a lot of people. And how he performs is going to say a lot about where Oklahoma is going to be ranked early in the season next year.
Now, that is true, and that will have ramifications. We saw in Provo how cool Jackson Arnold is under pressure, because that was a tough situation to step into when he had to play the second half of that game and Dylan Gabriel went down with what they didn't call it a concussion, but he was in the concussion protocol. We know that much. And Arnold stepped in on short notice. And was he prolific? No. But did he do exactly what he needed to do to keep Oklahoma in the driver's seat in that football game? He did. And he made some key throws down the stretch to help lead the Sooners to victory. And so we've seen those flashes. Obviously, we remember not just the BYU game, but earlier in the season, some of the throws he made against Tulsa and Arkansas State. And okay, it's Tulsa and Arkansas State, but even so, this is going to be the first real test of Jackson Arnold's collegiate career. I think what I am encouraged by is that for him, it comes in a low pressure situation. There is nothing at stake in this football game. There is nothing at stake whatsoever. He gets 15 practices leading into the bowl game to be the number one guy, to be the starter, to take all the first team reps. And at the end of it all, he gets to go play 4 quarters of a football game. And that game, whether you win or lose, whether he excels or whether he sucks, guess what? In the end, doesn't really matter one way or another. I mean, sure, it'll impact some narratives heading into the offseason, but he's not stepping into a pressure-filled situation for his first collegiate start, which for a guy like that, even as highly regarded as he is and as cool as he tends to be, this is a nice, easy on-ramp for him into being the full-time starter at the University of Oklahoma. Now, my question is, I had this discussion with Steely earlier on the radio. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. As we close the book on the Dillon Gabriel era at the University of Oklahoma, how are you going to remember Dillon Gabriel, and where does he fall amongst the quarterbacks that have made their mark within Sooner lore over the years?
Okay. So I took some heat. What was it, last week when I said that he saved the program when he showed up? And now a lot of people are saying it. I still contend that he kind of saved the program. It was like without Dillon, like it would have been rough, dude. Who do they have without it? Like they didn't have it. I guess maybe they would have had Casey Thompson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in that case, you probably.
Yeah, Casey Thompson.
I agree. Dillon Gabriel, and this sums up my thoughts on Dillon Gabriel, and it's a phrase that has been circulated on Twitter because I'm sure like it's not a thought that is exclusive to me. Everybody kind of perceives it. He was the right guy at the right time for Oklahoma. And so from that standpoint, Brandon, I look at him much the way that I look at Josh Heupel when you're talking about the great Oklahoma quarterbacks of yesteryear, because admittedly, the difference between the two is Josh Heupel won a national championship. Dillon Gabriel did not. So that will always be the distinction between those two. But when Bob Stoops got to the University of Oklahoma, one of the first things he did was bring in that junior college QB that wasn't physically impressive, didn't have the greatest arm in the world,
left-handed.
And he was left-handed, but he was reliable. He was well respected. He was a good teammate, and he knew how to play within himself and command an offense. And those are exactly the same qualities that you see in Dillon Gabriel. Nothing about him jumps off the page physically. He was not gifted with a 6'5" frame or a rocket of an arm or 4.5 speed for that matter. But with everything that he is capable of as an athlete, he has maximized it. And he has been willing to accept his limitations to play within them. And in doing so, he has commanded the respect of everybody in that locker room at Oklahoma, become universally adored, and in dealing with a fan base that scrutinized him immensely over the 2 years that he was the starter at Oklahoma, Gabriel handled the criticism with grace, and he handled the success with humility. And he is not Baker Mayfield. He is not Kyler Murray. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Jason White or Sam Bradford or, Jamel Holloway. But Dillon Gabriel is always going to have that niche in Sooner lore, if only for that game-winning drive against Texas. That alone earns you your niche. But for being a 2-year starter and stepping in, being willing to jump on board with a program that was in the midst of turmoil, fill the enormous shoes left behind by a future Heisman Trophy winner and number 1 overall draft pick, and take your lumps in the process, give 100% every single day. I hate saying 110% because it's not possible, but Gabriel gave 100% every single day for the University of Oklahoma for the 2 years that he was there. And to think that he was that close to being a UCLA Bruin. I will always have fond memories of the Dillon Gabriel era at Oklahoma, because beyond being an exceptional quarterback on the football field, he's just an outstanding dude and somebody you can't help but root for. I will be rooting for him wherever he goes, even if that's USC. Dillon Gabriel is somebody I will always pull for.
Yeah, like seriously, when Caleb Williams got into the portal, and at the time when Caleb got into the portal, it was still he was actually leaning on staying at Oklahoma, but they wanted to weigh their options and listen to what was going on. You know the whole backstory just as much as I do now on the Williams thing. So Dylan even put it in his transfer edit that he posted. Remember, he said, "I'm going to bet on myself."
Yep. And he
And
did.
at that point, at that point in time, remember Lebby. Soon after Dylan got announced that he was going to Oklahoma and left UCLA, Lebby went out to eat with Caleb Williams at like the Mont or something like a couple of nights later, and they had a long talk. So there was a lot of discourse going on there, and it for him to not only show up, for him to not only play the way he did, for him to not only win some of the games they did at Texas. I mean, that is, he will be always in Sooner lore, much like Caleb Williams will always be in Sooner lore when it comes to the Texas game because of their performances in that game. However, he will be viewed in a much brighter light because when the program looked like everybody was turning their back on it, he was running to it instead of away from it. And that to me says a lot about his character. It says a lot about who he is as a human being. And I can tell you from talking to people behind the scenes, there's some people that are visibly upset and like sad that he is leaving this early because they wanted one last hurrah with him. Everybody kind of understood he was going to leave after the bowl game, most likely. If it was a New Year's Six bowl, he's playing in that bowl and sticking it out with Oklahoma and probably having his people work whatever they need to do behind the scenes to make sure when he hit the portal, he had everything set up. But the Alamo Bowl, he was like, Jackson, this is yours. And I think he's up there because of what he did, Parker, and because of the circumstances he walked into. I honestly think he's up there with some of the Heisman guys. Now, he's below them a little bit, but like as far as like I think it goes, if you talk about Sooner lore, I think you would say Mayfield, probably Murray, right? Then it'd probably be Bradford and Jalen Hurts. They're all kind of, I think Murray, Bradford, Jalen Hurts are all kind of clumped together in that second tier. Mayfield's up there in a world of his own, right? And then below that, you got Heupel and Dylan Gabriel. And I think in a different world where Josh Heupel didn't become the OC and people didn't start hating him because of him being the OC and he left on bad terms with Bob Stoops and now he's made peace with it and the university and Heupel have kind of made peace with things a little bit, but I think Heupel would be up there with Mayfield. But because of all that, he's kind of down there in the third tier. But I think Dylan's right below Hurts, Bradford, and Murray. He's kind of down there with, Heupel. I think Heupel and Gabriel in that third tier by themselves. And then below that, you've got Landry, Trevor, those type of guys. Paul Thompson may be in that third tier because he moved from a position to come save OU in 2006. So, but there's a lot. It's a lot. It's very debatable.
There's one guy you left out, and I actually think it might be a better comparison.
Oh my God, Jason White.
Exactly.
Oh my God,
exactly.
Jason White.
Gabriel and Jason White are two guys that probably will never get the full extent of their due from Sooner fans for what they accomplished in the Crimson Three. I stand by this take.
I think White's second tier. Yeah, I think White's
Jason White is one of the three most underrated Sooners of all time.
Facts.
And Dylan Gabriel, I think he's going to kind of be thrown onto that same pile because will you remember him in the same breath as the guys that won the Heisman trophies? No. And even Jason White, he did win a Heisman Trophy, and yet he's kind of an afterthought in a lot of people's minds. But again, you just, unless you have the full context historically for the situation that Gabriel stepped into at Oklahoma and what he was able to do in the face of some very adverse circumstances and a lot of new and a lot of change and a lot of learning on the fly, then I don't think you can truly appreciate all of what he brought to the University of Oklahoma in his 2 years as the starter.
I do want to make sure people understand that when we've named all those players, like we were doing 2000 to now, like I get that Jamel Holloway and Steve Davis and, the Tommy McDonald's of the world. And I'm trying to think of the 50s quarterback that won all those games. Tommy McDonald, I believe, was a halfback, or H-back or whatever.
Jack Mildren.
Well, Jack Mildren's way up there, but he was in the 70s. He was 71. He was in the game of the century.
Oh, not Jack Mildren, but I know who you're talking about. I can't think of it's.
Oh my gosh, man!
Tip of my tongue.
Anyways, yeah. So, all of those guys will be Troy Aikman. Jason. No, I'm just kidding. Troy Aikman actually is, he's got a national title ring. He just got it off the wings of Jamel Holloway while he was on crutches. But J.C. Watts, Thomas Lott, Dean Blevins. Dude, am I not even going to get a smirk for that one?
I was just going to see whether you could make it through while keeping a straight face.
Like, I was like, and everybody was like, Dean Blevins was a fantastic athlete. So anybody that hates on him is crazy. Parker, I don't know. You two just cracked me up with each other on Twitter. So,
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's fair. Make it a quote, right?
Height of comedy.
Yep. Anyways, there's so many good quarterbacks through the years at Oklahoma, but we were just doing 2000 to present, so I apologize. So having said all that, it is going to be interesting to see how the offense looks in the bowl game. Like, just because you got people hitting the portal, right? Like, I think for the most part, all the starters are going to be out there. I don't foresee, outside of maybe Guyton, anybody sitting out. I can't imagine Andrew Rame's going to sit out, even though I expect him to declare for the NFL.
Yeah.
Just can't imagine it. But I've been surprised before. I just wouldn't if I'm him.
Well, first time starting quarterback, first time offensive coordinator. That alone, provide some interesting wrinkles.
It should. But if you want to know what we know about the offense moving forward, you can go to ouinsider.com, because we've got some pretty in-depth quotes on what to expect from some very good sources on that. Anyways, yeah, man, it's going to be a fun bowl. And I think how OU performs, as weird as it sounds, could also affect, there's going to be, there's this rush, right, of people getting in the portal December 4th and 5th, right? Like December 4th, 5th, 6th. It's going to be, we've seen some of the wildest entries I can remember since the portal opened up. I think Jalen Hurts getting in the portal, which we expected to happen. And if you've ever listened to the podcast, I had a different partner back then on the podcast. And on Christmas, that person asked me on December 25th, 2018, who OU's quarterback would be in 2019. And I said Jalen Hurts. And I only said that because I knew at that point in time, people around Jalen Hurts had been kind of throwing stuff out to people of importance, if you will, on the OU side, that they would like to be interested in Oklahoma if they hit the portal. And so I kind of threw that out there and everybody mocked it, and then it happened. But outside of Jalen Hurts, this has been absolutely nuts. I guess Caleb Williams in 2021, like this has been absolutely nuts, Parker. Like the amount of huge name quarterbacks just going into the portal, like big names, not just run of the mill quarterbacks, like big time college football quarterbacks hitting the portal. Make it make sense, Parker. Make it make sense.
I mean, it's the era that we live in, Brandon. It's as simple as that. I mean, the transfer portal market for quarterbacks has become out of control. And when Matt Rule said last week, it'll cost you $1.52 million to get a decent QB, I think he was probably shooting on the conservative side, because with the numbers that are going to be thrown around for some of these quarterbacks, that's what's driving this right now. That's what's driving the rash of portal quarterbacks exploring options elsewhere, guys that have stable situations and have good draft stock. But I mean, for a guy like Dylan Gabriel, Brandon, I think he's the perfect example of somebody that, you know, he's done about everything there is to do at the collegiate level, and we've talked about that. But as you have said, he can probably make more money going to play somewhere as a sixth-year senior than jump into the NFL.
Yep. No,
not only lasts a year, but even so, can make good money doing that.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Like, you set yourself up for, and those endorsements can roll over into your pro career. So why not continue to extend it, build your portfolio in a different fan base? So now you got UCF, even though most UCF people despise Dylan. You've got Oklahoma, and you got wherever he's going to go, whether it's Oregon, UCLA, Mississippi State. Like, those are the three teams we continue to hear in regards to Dylan. So, and we've heard USC as well, but I just don't buy that too much right now. Do you buy that? Do you buy USC and Dylan Gabriel?
I mean, do I buy it in that there's probably some mutual interest? Yeah, I would think so. I mean, if you're Dylan Gabriel and you're looking to maximize your value beyond next season, Lincoln Riley is obviously one of the guys on your short list that you probably would like to work hand in hand with. I think that's fair to say. But also, I do think it's more likely he ends up at Oregon or Mississippi State. Those, to me, seem like the two very obvious potential destinations that are just staring you right in the face.
Okay, so knowing all that, and knowing that there's going to be even more names that hit the portal over the next 2 or 3 days, does Oklahoma have the roster right now? And let's say they add Chris McClellan to the defensive tackle spot. And obviously they're bringing in David Stone. They're bringing in Nigel Smith. They're bringing in Jaden Jackson. You've got 3 or 4 really big-time defensive tackles coming in, portal/recruiting side. You got Grayson Halton, Kelvin Gilliam, Dejon Terry, Lacey, and I guess that'd be 9 guys you would like to add. And I guess you got Ashton Sanders, Champ Sanders as well.
Marcus Strong is still there.
And then Marcus Strong. So you got 11. You got 10 or 11, 9, 10, 11 guys there. Is that a good enough defensive tackle? Is that a talented enough defensive tackle room that you feel you can go in the SEC and at least compete to win 9, 10, 11 games in year one?
Depth-wise, like competitive depth-wise, I would say yes. But I also think none of those guys that you mentioned, save maybe for Stone, have the potential in 2024 to be a force. And I feel like year one in the SEC, you might
think
need
McClellan does
force.
A force? He's played in the SEC and he
has
produced.
Now, if you get McClellan in the fold, again, I think that's somebody that's up towards the top of the depth chart immediately. But even so, man, I think, the name that has been swirling, is he going to enter the portal? Is he not? Is
David
he going to come to
Stone,
OU? Is he not? It's David Hicks, right? I mean,
David Hicks. I mean, yeah.
let's address the elephant in the room. That is a guy that I think you throw him on Oklahoma's roster in 2024. That front seven instantly becomes more fearsome. But
What about Dominic McKinley?
And were the Sooners to pull that flip off, it's another guy that you can throw onto the pile. Just, true freshman right off the bat, generally, especially on the defensive line, don't make a major dent. And so I'm tempering expectations even for Stone and a guy like McKinley. But the more depth you have, the more you can rotate guys. Because, look, interior guys get tired easily. They're big. They're huge. They're moving a lot of weight down in the trenches, doing dirty work. And so the more of those guys that you can count on and rotate off the field in one another's stead, the better off you're going to be as a defense. And so I think the Sooners are going to have plenty of those guys one way or the other in 2024. My question is, are they going to have a guy like a DJ Hicks who is capable of just being a stopper? Not just a disruptor on the interior, but a straight up stopper, executioner type dude.
I mean, I don't want to give away everything just because I have the note up on OU Insider regarding Hicks. I'll just say if I'm an OU fan, I temper expectations right now and just be patient because I don't think a final decision's made one way or the other. I really don't. But I've got way more information on why, on how, and when, and if, and all that in the note that I put up on OU Insider. And it's pretty in depth and explains a lot of what's going on with Hicks. Because I talked to somebody very, very close to the situation that 100% knows what's going on. Talked to multiple people actually tonight on that. So it. If I'm Oklahoma, straight up, I go try to swing with a couple other guys, man. Like that's just my opinion. Like I go swing Thor Griffith. Like I go try and see what he can do. Well, I mean, look, one of the best defensive tackles in the ACC was at Western Michigan last year.
That is true. And,
and OU offered him Fisk. OU offered him.
OU did offer him.
And he very much reminds me of Fisk.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And not because he's a white guy, but go watch their film. There is a lot of similarities. Like Thor Griffith can flat out move. Like that dude can run.
And that was the one thing that impressed you about Fisk too, the way he moves that size.
Yeah, like if I'm Todd Bates, I go pushing really hard for him. And if you could get him and McClellan, and say you don't get David Hicks, I think you're happy with what you're walking into the SEC with at defensive tackle at that point.
I think I agree with you, Brandon, and I think
particularly in 2025.
Well, let's just say you get Thor Griffith and McClellan, and you're still waiting on DJ Hicks. I don't think you have to close yourself off to the possibility of taking 3 portal defensive tackles. You can always process somebody. I think those 3 guys are all 3 guys worth having.
Yes, I agree 100%. So, and I know for a fact I've talked to Thor Griffith, and he flat out told me if Oklahoma was to offer, I'd visit in a heartbeat. And he has some really good offers already. But the one thing OU fans need to know, and it's the reason why OU has one of the top 2024 defensive tackle classes as it sits, is Todd Bates is an excellent recruiter. And his development and the defensive line's understanding of his development, defensive linemen across college football and high school understanding of his development of defensive linemen is renowned. So that doesn't shock me that there are people reaching out to Oklahoma from that position zone. Hey, pick me. I would love to come play and be developed by you, Mr. Todd Bates.
Yeah.
I on the McKinley thing, and we're talking about the 4-star defensive lineman Dominic McKinley that's committed to Texas A&M, and he chose Texas A&M over Oklahoma and Texas, but I think more so Oklahoma. There's some buzz that Texas hasn't really been talking with him very much, whatever that may be. I know Oklahoma has spoken with his people. Not only they speak with them, they've spoken with them all week, and I know they spoke with them again tonight. And I would not be shocked if there is an in-home and or they go by and see him here very, very soon. I'll have more of that on OU Insider later on, but I would not be shocked if that takes place. And oh boy, are things heating up a little bit there. According to what I've been told, there is work to be done, but Oklahoma's going to swing, and they're going to swing hard.
They wrote Todd Bates off. He ain't right back. Imagine if in the same month, Todd Bates flipped Dominic McKinley and landed DJ Hicks.
And
the haters would be in shambles.
Bro. And there's a realistic possibility of them pulling off DJ Hicks, Dominic McKinley, and Chris McClellan in the same month. And remember, everybody in the country, Chris McClellan was committed to Ohio State. Yep. Alabama tried to flip him. Oklahoma tried to flip him.
Was he officially committed to Ohio State or just silently?
Silently.
That's what I thought.
And yep. And he decommits silently, I guess, or whatever. And opens his recruitment back up. Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama, LSU. And I believe those were the 4, right? If I remember correctly.
I think so.
Yeah, those were the 4. Pushed really hard to land him. And he ends up going to Florida. So anybody saying that, he only has 47 tackles and 2 seasons. Parker, you stood right there when I talked to a really, really good source on this. And the guy, that person looked right at us and said, that kid can play. That dude would change some things up on the defensive tackle spot for Oklahoma. And they were dead serious, like straight face when they said it. So the fans that look at it and go, meh, or whatever, there's a lot of people that know a lot about football that completely disagree with that sentiment. Completely disagree with that sentiment. So, and everybody can have their own opinion, that's fine. But I'm just telling you, the people that break that down, evaluate on a daily basis, Parker feel like that guy can play and play at a high level. I think he's a little overweight right now at 310, 320. But if you're looking for a nose tackle, you're losing slide him right in there with Dejon Terry and you rock, right? Like there's a world that could happen, but you got to get him down. I think if you're Oklahoma, you got to get him down to like 305, 310.
And that's easy enough to do. I
think. But people, the dude for Texas, defensive tackle for Texas, man. Devondre Sweat. People want that. There's not a lot of people built like that.
No, you don't get a lot of cats like Devondre Sweat.
Like the fridge, he's like the fridge reincarnated right now.
Uh-huh. Hey, the Sooners did have one surprising portal entry today. One that kind of caught us off guard, caught everybody off guard. And that was Dalen Smothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Tawi Walker hitting the portal. Okay, you could kind of foresee that coming. Marcus Major makes sense that he's hitting the portal. I know there were some folks at OU that were under the impression he was just going to be done with football altogether.
Yeah.
But had another year, and okay, he's going to go use it somewhere else. Best of luck to him. Walker and Major, two guys that, their usefulness in the Oklahoma backfield had probably reached its zenith a while back. And Walker more recently than Major, obviously, because he was still Oklahoma's bell cow as of a month and a half ago. But the one portal entry and the third portal entry in the running back room that was a bit unexpected was that of Dalen Smothers, who played some pretty crucial snaps at times for Oklahoma, most memorably in that Oklahoma State game here in the 2023 season, preserved his red shirt. He only played in 4 games. And then, boom, he's in the portal. And he's looking somewhere else. And Brandon, that one,
yeah,
I saw it. I was like, oh, that's a development. Because we're watching these portal announcements fly in throughout the day. And we're like, okay, yes, check the box. Okay, we knew this was coming. Not hard to figure that this guy was going to be in the portal. But then Dalen Smothers, less than a year after signing his letter of intent with Oklahoma and moving darn near 1,000 miles from North Carolina to come to school in Norman, he's on his way out. What do you make of it?
I was shocked, man. Like, I think there was some people around Norman that were horribly shocked. He played. He was the one freshman that played during significant periods of the game that were meaningful, and he still dipped out. I don't think it was the kid's choice ultimately. At the end of the day, would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, 100%.
So, I mean, like, I think, and maybe, obviously, the kid has some choice. I mean, he could say no, I'm transfer, but I think at the end of the day, he's swayed by people around him.
Yep.
And it happened that way. And it is what it is. I think Oklahoma was a little bit upset with that, but I don't think they're
think about it. DeMarco Murray gave his number to that kid. I'm not talking about his phone number either. His actual number, his jersey number, the jersey number he wore at Oklahoma. He let Hollywood Smothers have it when he showed up. They loved Dalen Smothers. They thought he had a real bright future. And then poof, it's over. At least at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is.
You got Taylor Tatum coming in. That's what eases the burden a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, it just doesn't. It hurts Oklahoma a little bit. It kicks them in the depth, but I think you got Taylor Tatum. Obviously, you got Gavin Sawchuk just took off the last half of the season and had a remarkable last half of the season. Like, that is his backfield. And when I talk to sources, that's Gavin Sawchuk's backfield. And ultimately now they need somebody that's going to spell him, that's going to be, as I've said multiple times, his yang to his yin. And they're going to have to look for that in the portal, because let me explain that. Yes, they have Javonte Barnes. Yes, they have Taylor Tatum coming in. Yes, they got a plethora of other running backs still on the roster. But you want somebody that you feel can come in and at least compete and bring out the best out of those three. Gavin Sawchuk. You know what Gavin Sawchuk's going to bring you now. Like, you know it. If he's healthy, he's going to give you 125 to 140 yards every game. And that's who he is. And that is an elite back No question about it. But he can't tote the rock 40 times a game. He can't play 100 snaps. You've got to have somebody else out there to spell him and keep him fresh so that he can do what he's supposed to do for you on the field. And that's to be a GoDaddy and break the long run for you. Is Javonte Barnes going to be able to do that? We're going to find out in the Alamo Bowl. He's it now.
Yeah, pretty much.
He better bring his big boy pants that he had last year because he's it. So we're back to 27 and 2 being the guys again in the backfield.
How much of Caleb Hicks do you think we see in the bowl?
I think you'll see him some, but I don't know that you'll see a lot of him. I think there's everybody I talk to says that he's still got some growing up to do. So
yeah, that's fair. He is a true freshman after all. So Oklahoma's not going to take a portal receiver, at least not right now. That position is kind of set.
Yeah.
Tight end, that's a different story. You got some work to do there, and the Sooners are going to work.
Yeah, I think it's tight end. It's you got Mark Redmond from San Diego State, who I think had like 400 something yards and 3 touchdowns. He's got 600 plus in the last 2 seasons total. Started his career at Washington. And then you obviously have Jalen Conyers, who started his career at Oklahoma, went to Arizona State, and I think he has like 700 plus yards and a bunch of touchdowns. Just an amazing athlete. They're 2 separate type of players. There one is obviously in Redmond is a more balanced tight end, if you will, a guy that is going to be able to block and catch, but he's not super explosive, if that makes sense. Like he's not going to be able to, you're not going to be throwing tight end screens to him to go down the field like you would Conyers or like a Mark Andrews type or a Calcaterra type, right? Like different type. And then you have a Conyers type who isn't the best blocker in the world when it comes to run blocking because he's never been asked to do it. He's essentially been asked to play a split out tight end and be essentially another big slot, if you will. And that's it. That's what he's done in his career. So 2 different types. If you can find room, I think you take both and try to see how that works out. But you also have Devon Mitchell coming in, and he could be the guy that encompasses both into one guy.
Yeah,
so
that's very
physicality,
true.
blocking, can run, is an elite athlete, has great hands, can just do it all. He could end up being the best tight end in college football before his career is done. And I don't think that's hyperbole. So you gotta be careful on how you go about this tight end spot. I don't think you want to bring 2. I think you would settle with just 1 and rock with that. And then hopefully you can get Caden Helms healthy. Hopefully Cade McIntyre gets going and obviously Devon Mitchell and whoever you bring in and the portal can compete and see how it lays out.
There are a couple of fun OU connections there with Jalen Conyers. Obviously, I think the Brennan Thompson one is pretty well known. It's pretty well known and understood that Brennan Thompson and Jalen Conyers both being West Texas guys. They go back a long way, close friends. But also, and I'd forgotten about this until recently, back before Caden Helms was an Oklahoma Sooner, he was on track there for a little while to commit to Arizona State and be a Sun Devil. And when he went down there for his official visit, his host was none other than Jalen Conyers. So 2 little ties there back to Oklahoma for Conyers. We'll see where that leads.
That's interesting.
We saw some games this past weekend, Brandon. Kevin Sperry looked like that dude, as always. Made a couple errant throws. That's fine. Carl Albert won that game comfortably. Xavier Robinson looked really good. Marcus James, Trinae Washington both made plays. Washington had 2 interceptions. Carl Albert finished the season undefeated and almost unchallenged in 5A in the state of Oklahoma. I think what everybody was more tuned in with on Saturday, though, because the expectation was Carl Albert was going to win the state title. People saw that and they're like, okay, yeah, well, that tracks makes sense.
Yeah.
Good for Sperry, good for X, good for Marcus and Trinae. What happened in the nightcap was, well, unfortunate, Brandon, because we got the Andy Bass show. Got to watch him put up 4 first half touchdowns and stake Heritage Hall to a 28-14 lead at one point over Lincoln Christian. Lincoln Christian's able to claw back into that game and tie it, and it's a 28-28 ball game. And the unthinkable happens, and you get Andy Bass, warrior that he is, sidelined with a knee injury in the third quarter. He was on crutches, didn't play for the remainder of the game. Heritage Hall did not muster another point, and in fact did not muster but 1 first down, I think, the rest of the way. So if you are a praying type of person, offer a couple prayers up for Andy Bass, because certainly what he is going to have to go through in terms of rehab for that injury that he suffered, it's nothing he can't handle. And, he's a stud. He's going to keep his nose down, and he's not going to let it sidetrack him from his ultimate goals. But still, very unfortunate to see a guy like Bass, who works so hard and has become such a fan favorite and was right there on the precipice of leading his program to a 2nd consecutive state title, and he gets the moment ripped away from him in that type of fashion. You hate to see that for anybody, most of all Andy Bass.
Yeah, it sucked to see that happen. I mean, he was playing so hard. They were up by 7. Heritage Hall was up by 7 points, and it looked like they were driving back down to maybe, extend it to a 2 touchdown lead. I don't know if it was a called quarterback sweep or if he was rolling out and just decided. I can't remember if he had dropped back and he had just got pressure and decided to roll out, but
it was a designed run.
He was just running, and you saw it happen because he jumped up. He jumps up in the air, and grabbed his knee instantly as he was going out of bounds. But he came out, right? He came out of the fray on the sideline, and it looked like he was okay until he got about to the hash, and then he realized he could not put any weight on his leg anymore. But he kept trying, and he kept trying, and he kept trying. He was literally like trying to get the play. And then finally he just hit the ground because he couldn't stand the pain any longer. And everybody rushed over and took him out. I walked over and just kind of had his head covered with a towel. And I just told him, look, we're praying for him and everything. And he looked up at me and just tears running down his face. And he just said, I can't believe it. I can't believe I tore my ACL. And he said he felt he'd let his team down. And I guess I get that feeling, but I told him straight up, man, he didn't let anybody down. I said, dude, you are exact quote. I said, you're a badass. What you did today was unbelievable before you got injured. And you have such a bright future ahead of you. I know it seems in this moment that it's so hard, but I said, you got this huge future at Oklahoma ahead of you. Just work and get back. You'll be better off because of it. And you could tell the tweet that he laid out that night, later on that night, that he had kind of come to grips with, okay, he's probably going to be stronger for it in the long run. That type of injury isn't a career sentence anymore. It actually helps some people become better. Didn't Adrian Peterson run for 2,000 yards after he tore his ACL?
Yes, well, Adrian Peterson is Adrian Peterson.
Right, but my point, but there's a lot of people in this world that had their career years post knee injuries.
Well, I mean, take for example, and nobody remembers it now because it was 3 years ago and it's ancient history because he's been exceptional ever since. But Gentry Williams did the exact same thing in high school. Gentry Williams tore an ACL. He's been
That's
just
right.
fine.
He did. And he's freaking fantastic. Well, knee is, but I mean, he's got shoulder surgery, but everything else, he's been good. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's a sad situation, man, because he had a career year, a career season.
That year was a year for the record books in the state of Oklahoma. It was a career year for Andy Basher. It's one of the greatest individual seasons of the 21st century in the state of Oklahoma. No question about it. He carried that team, and he was automatic when he was on the field.
Yeah.
Heritage Hall was going to score. They were going to score.
Yep. So anyways, look, people, we're going to have so much more information for you guys on OU Insider. Transfer portal is wild, wild, wild. More entry, more people are going to enter. I'm not saying from Oklahoma. I'm saying from across all college football. And as they enter, Oklahoma is going to be evaluating. They're going to be seeing if they fit into their culture, into their system. And they're going to go from there because they want the best possible team. And I'm saying something very rhetorical and obvious. They want the best possible roster going into the SEC in 2024. So this is going to be a big offseason for Oklahoma. It's going to be a big transfer window for Oklahoma. Not just transfer window right now, but the post-bowl transfer window when they reopen it back up. And there's like that, was it like a 10-day span where they can get in the portal and then they can rush and make a decision and move on. So there is a lot of movement that's going to happen over the next several months. And if you want to stay up front, like, and ahead of the game and know who's going to get in and who Oklahoma's going to look at once they get in and all that type of stuff, come to OU Insider because we've been ahead of everything. We've told you all what's going to happen and it's happened. And we've got a lot more recruiting information coming. National Signing Day is a little less than 16 days, a little over 2 weeks away. And then after that, you got the bowl game. And then after that, you're going to have more transfer portal stuff. And then after that, you're going to have another National Signing Day for the players that are late evals. And then you're going to have all the junior days, and you're going to have the spring practices after that. And then you're going to have official visits and the spring game, and then more official visits and the evaluation period. Coaches hitting the road again. And then the Champion Barbecue, the Party in the Palace. Then fall camp rolls around. And in between all that, Parker and I are going to be on the road, going to camps, going to combines, going to schools, seeing all OU's targets, getting you guys information. It is going to be a fun off season. And to stay ahead of the game, OU Insider has everything for you on there. Plus, we cover basketball like nobody else. We've got Jesse, Brody, Parker. They're at all the basketball stuff. Got video, photos, recaps, recruiting information. OU Insider, where it's at right now. So go to ouinsider.com, sign up right now. Promo code, I'll give you a promo code. I got a promo code for you, OU Insider 30. You go and you type in OU Insider 30, you get 30 days free, OU Insider. Do that right now. Come join us. Come see what's going on at OU Insider. We'd love to have you. There's thousands and thousands of fans on there. I think we had like 30-something signups today. People are bringing it, and we love OU. We love the OU fan base so much. So thank you guys so much. Also, subscribe to this YouTube. We're almost to 14,000. I think we're a little under 100 till we get to 14,000. Year and a half, 14,000, man. That's freaking awesome. So come on, bring it. Please sign up. Please go subscribe to this. Go subscribe to OU Insider. Go give us 5 stars on all the podcasting platforms. And that's going to do it. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. We will see you guys later on this week for more transfer talk.